what is the plan? What is the goal overall for this group? Because I mean, when they started saying that there were people out there at the site where everybody was voting, trying to get them to sign petitions, I was completely confused as to what we were proposing to do as a group.
Okay, so let's start there, and I'm going to try and share my screen here. I have a working document that I've been working from, and I've added some notes to it. Okay, so this is just a Word document, a Google Doc that is, if you recall on our first Zoom call, we talked about simultaneous campaigns that we're running. One is to make sure we get the tax, let me rephrase that, make sure we get the revenue we need to fully fund JCPS. And simultaneously, we knew that there was a primary election coming up where certain candidates will bring a new energy if they get elected versus corporate establishment candidates that are not very exciting. If they get elected come November, people probably won't show up to the polls. And we want people to show up to the polls, and we want the right people to show up to the polls because we want this tax increase to go through. So it's really kind of just a matter of planning all of our chess moves and getting all of our chess pieces in place and working backwards from this timeline to what our ultimate goal is. And our ultimate goal is to get the right people to the polls to vote in favor of the right kind of change for Jefferson County and for Kentucky. And so the dates that are in red have now passed. So I turned them red just to show that we've gotten halfway through that schedule that I first posted. On next Tuesday, we'll know the election results, and it looks favorable that that the work that the Believe in Booker / Ditch Mitch campaign that was running, as I mentioned, simultaneously, has I don't know if we can claim that we were responsible in any way necessarily, but we definitely can feel comfortable that we did everything we possibly could because we worked our tails off. That was one busy group. So, and I think it did create a lot more excitement, and I think it does help us head into the general with the energy and enthusiasm and momentum that we're going to need to carry this movement. There's a movement happening right now, and we don't want it to die. We want justice for Breonna Taylor. We want a better student assignment. I'm not even saying better student assignment plan. I'm using the words reparations-based student assignment plan because we know that the student assignment plan that we have had has been detrimental to our families in the West End and our Black families in particular. And so we need to identify the harm that's been done and not just say, okay, let's make it equitable. Okay, clean the slate. We all start from scratch. That's not right. We have to do some real intentional work, shift some serious money, shift some serious energy, remove the structural barriers that exist, and Kenyatta and I were talking before we started this call. JCPS has done a true disservice to Black families, and they are ready to pull their kids out. And they're tired. They're tired of the same song and dance. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, and then it never happens. Okay, there's Yvonne. So it can't just be words because families don't trust words anymore. And we also know, Marty could be the greatest thing since sliced bread, but he may not be our superintendent in 2 years, and our board may not be the same board in 2 years. And so we have to, if we're gonna empower JCPS to take more tax dollars out of the pockets of homeowners, we have to have some kind of assurances and guarantees and irrevocable mechanisms in place to make sure that the money is going to be spent the way that it's being pitched. And right now it's being pitched as, you want to end busing. Well, we can't end busing if we don't have enough schools in the West End. So Marty has made commitments to spend certain dollars on on buildings. In fact, let me scroll down because I have that on this sheet here. Two new middle schools in West Louisville at $64 million. One new high school in West Louisville at $75 million. They just put something in the board agenda about a new elementary school in the West End, which seems very exciting. And then renovations of 4 new proposed magnet schools for state-of-the-art buildings, estimated $68 million. And that doesn't even include the renovations of Shawnee that's currently taking place, as well as Lyman T. Johnson. I was in there the other day. It needs a major, major renovation. It is a beautiful facility, but it needs the TLC. So these are the kinds of things that as a community we have to continue to demand. And the only way we can continue to make demands on our district is we have some kind of leverage. And so Yvonne and I, and our organizations are members of a coalition called AROS, which stands for the Alliance to Reclaim Our Schools. And so about 2 months ago well, actually for 2 years, we've been talking about how can we support the district in getting this revenue increase and simultaneously demand kinds of changes to the student assignment plan that our students need and deserve, in addition to curriculum, in addition to trauma-informed care, in addition to, smaller class sizes. All of these other things did not go away. They're still on our list of demands. But right now, we've got these things coming up for a vote, so we have to use that window of opportunity to have those conversations first and bring those to the forefront. So what can we do to support the district in their demands for revenue, but in a way that's controlled by those who have the most at stake? And so that would be parents, because it's their students that attend these schools, taxpayers, because it's our money that's paying for it, teachers, because it's teachers' labor, and they're the professionals who should be really calling the shots, especially along the lines of what does return to school look like. That's where teachers' voices are really, really relevant right now. Teachers have the true power to draw the line in the sand. And so getting those thoughts organized, this is the time to be getting those thoughts organized. And I'm hoping Yvonne will talk about that more at the end of this call, because she's involved with something else that's not related to the 2 campaigns that I've been talking to you about, but it is related to the bigger picture between now and November. So keep that in mind, Yvonne, that at the end of the call, I'd like for you to talk about NEU and the stuff that you're working on. But we have to make sure that we still have enough leverage that if the district looks like it's straying from its promises, especially between now and November, and the only way we'll know between now and November is if we make demands and we hold them accountable to those demands. And if they start to slip away, slippery from the demands that we're making, then we know that they're not being authentic with their promises and that they can't be trusted. And if we've got email addresses of people that said, yes, I support new revenue as long as it's used for these things, then if and when it looks like they're not going to be used for these things, then we can say, all right, guys, it's November 3rd next week. Be sure and show up to the polls and vote no. Because why would we just give them all this cash if they're not going to do the things that they need to do? And that's another reason why in the thread I mentioned that they think they're going to get the 35,000 signatures anyway. I feel like if you know you're going to get the signatures anyway, what's the harm in having a positive pro-public education campaign? So Yvonne and I mentioned are members of AROS, and so at the last 3 meetings, probably, Yvonne, we've brought up this idea to have a pledge, to frame the narrative, to make
maybe more than 3.
Yeah, I know, but I mean 3 officially. I know it was Memorial Day night that as a coalition we agreed to do it and build a website and put the pledge together. And 3 more meetings had to take place where it kept getting derailed. And the reason it was getting derailed was because our leader was taking it back to Brent McKim, who's one member. It's a 7-member coalition, 7 organizations, and Brent McKim JCTA is one member. Somehow one member got to say, no, we're going to wait. And so it kept coming back that we were going to wait because the JCTA consultant says we're going to wait, and because Marty says we're going to wait. And it's like, but we don't work for Marty. I know teachers do, and technically you do, but this coalition and this grassroots effort is not at Marty. In fact, it's disingenuous if we wait for the superintendent to tell us what to do. This is
And what frustrates me is that Brent McKim thinks that he has all the power to speak for teachers. He thinks that he is the only one that has a brain and that he's the only one that gets to make the call for us. Very seldom is our meetings us talking to him. More often than not, it's always him telling us. And yeah, he's out there and he gets to lobby, and yes, he gets to sit at the table with the board members and act like he's working on our behalf. But I hate that he is always the talking head. And I have thoughts, views, and opinions of my own. I don't need him to talk for me. And that's why I was more than willing and ready to try and put somebody else in his seat the last time his seat came up for vote, because I'm sick of that. We don't need more of the same.
You're on the same page.
Terms can he even have? How long can he even be there, really?
Golly, we need to figure out how to put that in the daggone contract.
Like limits for JCTA.
If we can only have a president for 2 terms, why does anybody get to have an unlimited amount of seats at the table? Like, no.
Yeah, he had that clause removed about 18 years ago. So he should have been out.
About 11 years ago, they had that removed. So he could keep serving.
Yeah.
Oh, it was there?
It was there, yes. And I don't even, according to a former vice president, it was never even voted on. It just magically disappeared one day.
That wouldn't surprise me at all.
I know.
At all.
So I just renewed my Zoom account today, and it just warned me that we only have 10 minutes left. So I want to resume if you guys want on another link, because I did set up the next meeting. Do you guys want to jump over to the next meeting? Because I think it looks like it's infinite. It's just the timing of when I renewed my account that it was still lingering in the old one.
Is it still Zoom or is it another platform?
It's still Zoom. It's just I have a 4 o'clock call, and so we could go ahead and use that.
Oh, okay.
Do you need to do another 4 o'clock for the 4 o'clock?
I don't think so. We'll just carry it on. So do you have the 4 o'clock link, Yvonne? And you could share it in the.
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask that.
If not, let's see. I'll grab it. Let's see. Here, it's in this group right here.
I'm glad to hear what ARROW stands for, and now I'm trying to beat my brain to figure out where I've heard it before. There's always so many acronyms and different organizations and people who are for this people and against these people, and I don't know who is who, and so normally I just kind of pass it off in the back of my head as, useless knowledge, but I've heard the name before.
Yeah, it's
so good to meet you face to face, by the way.
The same. I think I've seen you before. I'm pretty sure.
I'm pretty scary. I'm memorable. First time I ever did was a Facebook Live. I had to say I have a face made for radio, which is ironic because I used to write radio copy. But the chat's in the Zoom for the next Zoom. Are you sure the next one's not 40 minutes?
Let me double check, but it didn't give me the same warning when I set it up. So I was like, oh, okay, it seems to have clicked finally.
It's in the chat in case it's good or even if it's not good. I don't know.
Jennifer, my daughter went to Crosby. She had your husband as a teacher.
Oh, I hope she liked him.
I can't remember though.
Hopefully she liked him.
You do not have a daughter who went to Crosby because you are too young.
You are too sweet. I have a 21-year-old son.
Oh, for the love of God. What's the secret?
Shut up.
I know. Yes, that is what I'm thinking too. But
you can't see most of this is gray.
Well, I got 2 kids that go to Crosby now, and then I've got one. My oldest is going to be in high school at Eastern next year. So,
okay, you guys have to tell me all the beauty tips.
I don't know. Summer's off.
Oh my gosh. Oh my
I have
God.
to stay out of the sun because I have lupus and it makes me sick, so that helps.
Oh, wow.
Do you have problems with fluorescent lights too? Because my friend did.
Yeah. Yes, I get really bad migraines. Like,
She would pass out after a certain amount of time, like
Yeah.
not very long.
yeah.
Wow.
It's like,
I can't remember if she had a good experience. Does he teach social studies?
Yes.
Did he go from 6th grade to 8th grade or something like that last
He
year?
went from 6 to 7.
Okay. Yeah. She went there 6th grade and I pulled her out. It was multiple scenarios.
It was that overcrowding, wasn't it? Was it that?
It
when they were
wasn't
still
the overcrowding because
overcrowded?
she's getting ready to be an 8th grader this coming year. So the school was
Okay.
not overcrowded. She got punched in the face by a little boy the first day of school. They literally were going to do nothing about it at all. And it took everything in me to advocate in order for him to receive some type of consequence. Which, I mean, we got through that part, but then the whole situation with Miss Schulte and
Oh my God. My daughter had Miss Schulte. She
Like-
lost a year of instruction because that lady was drunk every day and they did nothing about it.
she taught makeup in the math
Yes.
class.
Oh my God. Yes. I was
My
so
daughter and then they wanted to love on her and feel sorry for her because she was going through a divorce and husband was sick and yada yada yada, whatever it was. I kept saying, I don't care what her personal problems are. What are you learning in that classroom? And so eventually I pulled her out and she's at Westport Montessori now. Because I figured if I was going to have to teach her at home, might as well get the packet and I can help her with it myself.
Well, good
It's
for
really
you.
the
I'm
work.
so sorry that happened. That just makes me so mad because, that's just not right.
And if I remember correctly, your husband was a social studies teacher?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was a positive experience. I went to parent-teacher conference and I had an opportunity to speak with him about his plans for the year. So that was definitely a positive, but there was just one thing after another and administration really didn't have their hand on what they needed to fix over there. And so I had to go, and I was glad to hear they got a new principal, and I was glad that Schulte is no longer in the classroom anywhere.
Yep.
But at the same time, too little too late. I can't keep leaving my daughter to chance when it comes to her academics because she's already at a disadvantage most other places. So I need her to be able to compete in this world when it's her turn. So
No, I completely agree with you. You did the right thing. It just infuriates me that happened and it was allowed to happen. And moving forward, this is the kind of stuff we need to stop. I mean, it's just ridiculous the amount of things these kids get away with.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you know what? And they tried to say, well, he's, well, at first, they act like they couldn't tell me who he was, but then they put it on the fact that he was special needs. And I'm like, listen, I'm a special ed teacher. I understand. But what we will not do is to teach him that is okay. He must receive a consequence, and it must be immediate, it must be firm, and it must be consistent. Because if he is to learn that it is not okay to put his hands on a little girl ever, it has to start right here and right now, like period. Like, no. So
I'm special ed too, by the way.
awesome.
Off, so join in the other link. I also put it in the chat.
Okay. Are we supposed to
It's in
go
the
over there
chat,
now?
Because I think it's going to kick us off
Yeah.
like any second,
That's
like
what it kept
literally any
saying.
second.
1 minute.
Okay. Then I'll jump over. All right. See you guys on the other.
I mean, we know that without classroom management, there's no learning going on in the first place. And you put a first year teacher in a classroom in the West End, and they don't have a whiff of what classroom management looks like. They don't even have the mom look. You know what I'm saying? They can't really just make you get to your seat. So, I mean, if they're not there yet, there's no way that they are going to be able to capture our babies and make them the outstanding individuals that they deserve to be. Like, no. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Especially if they're teach for Kentucky. They've had what, 5 weeks of training,
Oh God.
and then
There's no.
have a good time.
Good
I
luck.
don't even know who that is. I have no idea, but I'm also an ACES teacher, and people have negative attitudes about what ACES teachers, what ACES was able to turn out. So it's all
I was
good.
in the standalone program.
What does that mean?
The one, well, like my undergraduate wasn't teaching, it was dietetics and nutrition. And so moving back to Kentucky, when we'd been gone for a while, they had a program for special ed teachers to go to U of L. You know, we'll pay off your loans if you go into special ed. And, you know, I went through this whole program, got both my master's, my rank 1, everything, you know, racked up thousands of dollars in student loans, and then that program went bust. So they kind of stuck me with it there. I mean, I did get some things forgiven, but in the end, they just took that money. And, you know, when you hear about student loan forgiveness now for federal loans, that's the money they stole from us and put over there now. And they're like new teachers coming in. Like, I don't qualify to get anything forgiven anymore because I had loans before a certain date. So
but you can consolidate those and still get the 10-year, but then you still got to start over. It's from from your first payment. But yeah.
So let's stay on our topic if you guys don't mind. These are all great discussions for perhaps even what Yvonne is going to talk about at the end, because these are things that you can get your union to start taking more seriously if you start pushing for these demands from the grassroots level. And so she's gonna be your best mentor for guiding that energy in the right direction. So I scrolled down into my working document to some of the newer information. Down below is the stuff that we talked about in prior meetings. The highlighted stuff is what I want to cover today. And I think we did talk about this on the call before we jumped over to this call. And that is that the district and Eros and Brent want us to wait to come out with some kind of pro-public education message, a pledge, whatever. I personally think that it's just because they want, okay, so have you been at a meeting at your school perhaps where they say they want your feedback and then they invite you into a conversation and everybody sits around the table and each of you gives your 3 best questions or whatever, and then they let you raise your hand and ask one, and then maybe they give you some kind of bullshit response, and then the meeting's over. Thank you very much. If you have any other questions, feel free to email us, and it's all controlled and micromanaged. Have you all participated in any JCPS meetings that operate that way?
No, I haven't.
I'm sure, yeah. Yeah, I've been in plenty of meetings where I feel like you're really not going to listen to what I have to say, so.
Your mind's already made up.
Yeah.
So that's what this feels like to me. Is that they don't want us starting our own petition or pledge, I should say. They don't want us building leverage. They don't want us jumping in front of the narrative because then they can't take it away from us as easily. So they're encouraging us to wait. And in fact, Yvonne and I have been on at least 2 calls with Dr. Polio in recent weeks where he has told us why they want to wait. Their consulting firm has told them they want to wait. They think that if they get out there with this, if they talk about the tax increase at all, then the reporters are obligated to get the other side of the story. So they'll go and contact the petition people, and then your story will drive people to the petition when it might not otherwise come up at all. So they want to sneak this through under the radar. Our argument is if they think they're going to get the signatures anyway, then why are they afraid of pointing people to a petition? I personally, as I mentioned, think we ought to go ahead and cheer for the petition to get enough signatures, because this conversation needs to continue to take place and we need to have that leverage. If they get it through and sneak it under the rug and nobody ever came forward to talk about it, then we have no leverage. We have no way to say, these are the things, wait, these are the things you said you were going to spend the money on. Yeah, but then we needed masks. We forgot about masks.
Right.
So, yeah, so we need that leverage. And even if that means they get their signatures now, I know, I've seen what this community does when it becomes aware of the threat of privatization of our public schools. I know that when we can connect the dots for people to show them that this Tea Party group is tied to Matt Bevin, tied to the Koch brothers, tied to the Bluegrass Institute, or whatever they're called, Bluegrass BIPS, Institute, they'll fight it and push back on it just like they have everything else that we've exposed. So even with their billions of dollars, I think that the community, we just saw Charles Booker win a primary with 1/40th of what Amy McGrath's campaign had. So we know it can be done because we're the ones who actually vote. We're the ones who actually have that community. We're building a stronger community. We're getting better at our messaging. We're getting better at our communication channels. And, I have no doubt that if the message is right and we believe in it, and that's what it's going to take. We have to believe in it. We have to believe that the district is going to do what it says it's going to do with that money, and we will turn people out for that vote.
We have to believe that there is a positive outcome for our schools and families and children in the West End. We have to believe that part.
Yes.
Like, it's not about messaging. It's that there is an answer, and whether or not we have all of them right now or not, we're willing to keep having this conversation until it happens.
Right. And we have a window of opportunity to really put some leverage on some pressure on them to do the right thing. And so some of that conversation has involved around the Kentucky Alliance. Are you familiar with the Kentucky Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression?
Mm-hmm.
So Tyra Walker, she's a JCTA member, she's a teacher, and she's also one of the co-chairs of the Alliance. She and I were trying to get a meeting with Dr. Polio 2 months ago. Well, maybe it was the day after David McAtee was killed. So that may have been more like a month ago. I guess it hasn't really been that long, but
It was like a year.
It feels like forever. And she was scheduled to come on that call with me, along with Latasha Harrison, who's the president of the Louisville PTO. But given the circumstances of the night before, both of them were dealing with trauma in their own community and couldn't focus on this call. And so we lost a month of progress that we were hoping to at least start having conversations around what are the demands of the Kentucky Alliance. Because right now the Alliance is opposed to a tax increase, and understandably so. Our citizens, especially our poorest community members, cannot afford another dollar in taxes. So, how do we justify it? And so having that conversation of putting in writing what are the things we're going to do for this community, and even if it's not enforceable, but it's at least symbolic, have it passed as a resolution at a board meeting like they've done in the past. They did a resolution for the LGBTQ community, for example, to show support that they would have a more inclusive agenda. So why couldn't they have a resolution that says they support the Black agenda, especially in this current climate, especially in this environment? So that Black agenda would be coordinated by the Alliance, which is also its own coalition. So it would work with other community groups in the West End in particular to make sure that whatever those schools that they're building are budgeted for, that they meet certain needs. And the class sizes, smaller class sizes, and be real specific with what our schools need in order to be successful, and have the district make a commitment, symbolically, if nothing else, that it will honor this. And so that was a conversation that I was trying to and now I think we have until November to make that happen. So, and that's not going to be the extent of it. That's going to be what does it take to get the Alliance on board. There may still be another group and another group that still says, no, we are going to pull our kids out. We're going to start those church schools that Kenyatta and I were talking about earlier because we are done. We are through trusting JCPS. Yep, the homeschools and private schools. So I think the district wanting to wait and even manipulating leaders of our coalition into forcing us to lose the amount of time that we've now lost, because it was Memorial Day night when we agreed to move forward with this coalition to have a pro-public education message. And now the elections kind of derailed a lot of our energy and attention, but now that that's kind of getting to a point where we can maybe put it on the back burner, we can start focusing on the pro-public education message again, start garnering those email addresses, start framing the narrative, and put ourselves in that position to be the ones to hold out, to say, wait, you're going to wait until we're ready. And so that's the complicated edition of what your question was. 45 minutes later, I've answered your question, I guess. But
I appreciate it. I just didn't know, because I was like, okay, oh, wait a minute, are we for or against it? I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I'm in that let's chill table talk group with Tia and Tyra.
Yes.
And so we talked about the tax increase, and Tia was very adamant that she was against it. And I understood her thinking behind it. And I think it mirrors yours as far as wanting to hold them accountable for what they're going to be doing with that money and how does that impact our kids, because a lot of people can't afford that increase, especially if it's not going to benefit their students. And
Right.
so
100%.
I understood that part, but then at the same time, all I can think about is if they continue to keep defunding education and not giving us what we need, and now they want to take some of our monies and put armed guards in our schools, but not more mental health counselors. I don't understand how. You have no idea who you're putting in the building. You have no idea what their secret thoughts are and their motives are for wanting to do that job. So I just, I just wanted to make sure that I was clear what direction, because when I jumped in here, I was like, well, I don't know anything about this. I just want to, kind of hang out and see what this conversation looks like. I'm in awe of women like Tia and Tyra and Shamika and everything that they're doing and organizing, and I would like to be a help. I may not be able to be a physical body on the street, but I can still be a force in some way. So I just want to figure out how I can jump in and help.
You betcha. Yeah, that's awesome. And on the last 2 calls that we've been on with Marty, he indicated that they're going to start their own 501c4 and appoint their own board to conduct these conversations. And then he's calling themselves the grassroots movement. And I'm like, so again, that argument that, well, we don't want to draw attention to the tax increase because then they'll go and interview the anti-tax increase people. I'm like, wait a minute, you're the district, you're the administration, you're the entity that there should be groups pro and anti you, like whatever you're proposing. Like, you don't get to be your own pro. You don't get
I don't understand, how are they their own 501s?
I don't know, but that's what they're doing. And so that's
what that means. Like, what are we doing here?
It means they want to appoint their critics. No, that's not how this works.
That's like the police investigating themselves, right? Like, yeah, that works.
Get in front of them. We got to get ahead of them. And so I called my attorney today and I said, okay, I think we need to start a 501c4. We need to beat JCPS to the punch because they're trying to slow us down. And they've got gatekeepers. They've got gatekeepers in place that are slowing us down. And if this was the first time, okay, maybe, oops, let's fix it, but it's not. Kenyatta, you should hear the stories of the other 3 times that we have been derailed for years. So I've been documenting more. I've been calling it out more. I've even got a little private video chat. There's only 6 of us in there right now, but I want people to see it's, I'm not making this up. I recorded the meeting where Marty said this. I recorded the meeting where the Eros guy said this. I recorded the other meeting where he came back 2 weeks later and he's still backpedaling and saying, well, we don't have a quorum. And we're like, well, good news. We had a quorum when we made the decision the first time. So we don't actually need a quorum to not do what we agreed on. Like do you remember the sewer bill in Frankfurt, the pension bill? It's the same kind of thing. They know how to run these meetings in a way that just stall, and it's bullshit. And I'm tired of the bullshit. I'm tired of it. We're going to call it out. We're going to put a stop to it, and we're going to fix this.
We put that on a hat.
Real, yes. I'm tired of the bullshit.
Mrs. Fix It.
That's Sharon's nickname.
We should put that over the back part. Mrs. Fix It. Tired of the bullshit. On the back of it. Mrs. Fix It.
I like it.
So yeah.
Some of those we might be able to fund this change that we're looking for.
So yeah, they're going to raise money. They're going to do this 501c4 to raise money and do billboards and T-shirts and yard signs. And I'm like, hey, that's what we're doing already. We're already doing that. Why would you need to step in front of us? Why?
JCPS wastes money on something when they are trying to raise money for something else. Why would you do that?
Well,
I don't understand.
They're claiming that if they start this 501c4, it'll be through donations, so they won't really be wasting our money. They'll be getting donated money. But the thing
can't you take that same donated money and do some of the things that you said you wanted to do?
maybe, but they need the tax increase. Yes, Yvonne.
That's a whole tax thing.
Oh, that's the red book policies
Oh,
that we
yeah.
deal with, right?
Yeah, there's some things that you have to do with it. There's these things you can do with a C3, and there's more things you can do with C4, and then there's things that if you don't have a PAC, you're in a world of trouble.
And so when they say that they don't want to draw any attention to the tax increase because they'll interview this anti-tax increase group, and then they put themselves as the only one defending what they're doing, and they leave us out. They give us no opportunity to make them neutral. Why isn't JCPS neutral? Why do they think that it's their job to be the positive? Let us be the positive. Like we're already doing it. What are they afraid of?
Well, they're the ones that need to be trusted again. They're the ones that need to put their money where the mouth, their mouth where the money is, whatever that saying is. They don't have anybody's trust because they keep mismanaging the funds. So that just doesn't make sense.
Well, part of it too is expert worship. What do a bunch of parents and teachers the hell know? I mean, they don't say the quiet parts out loud. But here's Mr. Fancy Pants, who's done, 18 campaigns and won 17 of them. And they got to know because they're Mr. Fancy Pants.
Right. And even then, Dr. Polio was like, and that one in Indiana is going to pass because, you can sell security and da-da-da. And then guess what happened? All this movement happened and security is now more cops in schools. People hear it. They're like, wait, we don't want that. And so it actually failed. Indiana actually did the right thing, even though 2 weeks prior, he thought it was a done deal. So they're not in tune with everything that's happening in JCPS right now. They're out of this consulting firm is out of Danville, Kentucky. And they have won a number of their tax increase proposals, but that was under a different environment, that was under pre-pandemic conditions, and everybody is hearing the message completely different right now. We can't just keep moving forward with the pre-pandemic plan. It's going to fail.
People for the next Zoom are arriving. What do we do?
I guess we can go ahead, and I just see Brad so far. Do you see anyone else?
You want me to admit Brad?
Sure. Do you guys want to stick around for the next call? Who's available to stay?
I can stay for a little bit. I might not be able to stay for the whole thing, but I'd like to see what's going on.
Sure. So, hey, Brad, we're just wrapping up a previous call. Give us just another minute or two. So on this screen that I'm sharing, I think I covered why the pledges are only leverage and why we probably want it to go ahead and pass to get the signatures so that we can get it on the ballot. Another reason why we want to get it on the ballot is to keep having the conversation too, because if it just sneaks under the rug and we're still in the same boat in November and people are still bitching about busing or whatever their false narratives are, we never got it out in the open. We never got it out as an opportunity to say, look, you say you want to end busing. We can't end busing until we build more schools. So put your money where your mouth is, put up or shut up. And so if we never had a chance to have that conversation, the bitching will continue no matter whether the tax increase passes or not. And we have no leverage to actually enforce them to spend it on the what I consider to be the pitch. Right now, it's just a pitch. That's all it is. And, if Marty gets promoted or moved to another district or the board gets replaced, they can completely change it in a year or two without any kind of way to hold them accountable. In fact, I wanted a nickel tax because a nickel tax has to be used on facilities. And instead, they went with just a regular property tax. Another thing that happened at the fair on Tuesday, at the fairgrounds on Tuesday, was the tax hike people were there getting signatures on their petition. I had a run-in with them that morning. I was videotaping them, and the wind blew their sign over, and on the back of it was a Matt Bevins sign. So I zoomed in on the Matt Bevins sign and I said, that tells me everything I need to know, right?
Wow.
So there's that video we can use, put in our little bag of tricks. And then JCTA caught wind of them and sent Kamar Rashad and his wife down. Natalie. And they had a toe-to-toe that was recorded and made some airwaves. And then they went on the tax hike increase group and said that they were confronted by by Black Lives Matter activists. Did you guys see that? So they
Yes, I can see why they thought that, because his shirt said JCTA.
He's black? I mean, oh no, this one's telling me I got to end in 10 minutes also. I upgraded my account, Brad, but it's telling me I may have to start another meeting.
It takes like a day. We found out during a town hall where we extended it in the morning.
Yikes. Okay. Well,
Yeah, it was not good.
well, then we'll just start a third one, I guess. We'll just keep doing what we're doing. But that was pretty powerful, that exchange, because I think they packed up and left afterwards. But then for those guys to go into that group and say it was Black Lives Matter is really just a dog whistle, because they know that that is a group that's associated with the hate group in those circles, and they can just throw Black Lives Matter out there, and everybody's like, oh, oh, these
Scary black people. Oh no.
Yeah, so it had nothing to do with BLM, and in fact, if you ask BLM leadership if they're in favor of the tax increase, they're probably a hard no, just like the Kentucky Alliance. So it's ironic that they're pretending like it was BLM out there making the case when that's not a priority for them right now at all. Yvonne was going to talk a little bit about teacher organizing and the town hall that's coming up. And since Brad is our only person on the call for the Believe in Booker campaign so far, Yvonne, why don't you spend a few minutes telling everybody about the town hall that you were talking about to me, as well as the event tonight, the call tonight. And
Oh yeah, the town hall tonight too. Thank you for reminding me, since my brain is just. I'm a member of something called National Educators United. They're, people basically, we don't phrase it this way, but people are taking on their unions in different states because the unions just don't go far enough. It's all get along, go along.
Right.
And so they have started putting on these webinars, not every single Friday, but most Fridays. Tonight is another really good Black Lives Matter one, and I will put the thing in the oh shoot, what's the word I'm looking for? In the chat. Gosh. Anyway, they did one. The first one they did was Safe Return to Schools. Then we did one on austerity, and now they're doing a Black Lives Matter one. And then they're going to do an organizing one. They have like different ones they're doing. And they did 2 on Safe Return to School, 2 on austerity. And this is their third Black Lives Matter one, and they may do one more before they move on to some other topics. But anyway, they did a fabulous job. The person who helped organize the stick outs in Arizona is like the main goddess. Rebecca Gorelli is an amazing person. Like, I don't know, she really must have more than 24 hours in a day, all the stuff that she does. And her kids are little, like her oldest kid is like 6. But anyway, they did a presentation on this and said we could use it, make it for Kentucky. So I'm hoping to do the same thing here, have a town hall. It would be on Zoom just like this, only there'd be 100 people. On July 9th. The JCTA people are meeting for the first time on Monday, and I like some of the people in there. And, I am not anti-union. I'm a building rep in my building. But all of that said, the people in charge of this are not people that I trust to put teachers and kids first. That's going to have to be us. I'm not going to bash the union. I'm going to do any of that. But I'm just saying they can't do a good job. I mean, you've seen them. I'm not telling you something you don't know. I mean, do you think they're doing a great job on this? I don't think so. That's going to have to be us and parents saying, I get it. There's details to be figured out, but there's a line in the sand. We are not going to have 35 kids in a room. Sorry, ain't going to happen. We're not going to have kids without masks in school. This kindergartners without masks? No. And I get it. They can't wear masks. We got to do something different. teeny, teeny, tiny pods for kindergarten or something. I don't know. But throwing 20 kindergartners in a room and they're all unmasked and the teachers in our school are all over 50? No. Things like that. And the great thing about the town hall is we've already got the slideshow already done. On the national level, we can add the slides for us, use the same thing. There's a professor of education who put it together, has this big paper that came out, who can help speak at it. We can get our own speakers too, localize it, and then start inviting parents and teachers. Because Harvard had a book that came out years ago, because I'm old. I'm an old lady, called We is Better Than Me. All of us come up with better ideas than one person.
I think that's a Big Bird lesson too, isn't it?
I'm sorry?
Isn't that the Big Bird lesson that you learned?
Oh, like Big Bird lessons are,
Oh.
we don't all have to like the same things. And asking questions is a good way to find out things, which is also here. People can ask questions. They can come up with ideas. It'll be a real grassroots thing. People jotting down what they're saying and getting people connected so that we are the ones in charge. Not somebody in Frankfurt, not somebody in Van Hoos, us. Because schools can't start without parents or teachers.
Right.
You can plan what you want, but if we don't agree, you got a bunch of empty school buildings. So I'm sorry I took so much time. I usually try to be more succinct, but if you guys are interested in that, the Safe Return to School Town Hall is July 9th. We're planning it. I've got Greg's on that and a teacher out of Berea. But we can always use more people and more ideas because, as Harvard pointed out, now the four most important things I learned, I have to throw in the Harvard MBA program. We is better than me. Now there's the fourth most important thing I've ever learned.
Is there a link or something on that you can
There is a link to the one tonight for BLM. There's not a link for the one to July because we kind of just set the date today. But if you give me 1 second, I'm going to put up the link for tonight. Come on.
I mean, I've seen how, on Facebook, these people put, teachers, should we go back? What do you think? What do you think? And it's just, I don't know if they're actually listening to us. I mean, I didn't think that I was really going to take seriously whether I said we should go back or not.
They can't go without us. That's something we need to keep remembering. They can't do it without us.
And I honestly did not like NTI. It was hard. I was working 12 hours a day.
In school. And I know that's the dilemma is we have no good options. Usually you say, okay, the lesser of two evils. What we have is just 3 really evil things. There's no good thing. There is no good thing.
Not really, because if we go back to NTI, it's just going to be the same kids that did it are going to do it.
And the other kids are just going to, take a nap.
Yeah, I mean, I have kids that I couldn't even get a hold of by no fault of theirs. So I don't know.
But if you cram them in, like they're talking about having the same number of kids on a bus, no. And little Jimmy, every school has a little Jimmy. Actually, every class has a little Jimmy. That boy in kindergarten ate all his crayons the first week. Jimmy. Everybody knows Jimmy. That's the beauty of Jimmy. Everybody in the whole school knows who Jimmy is. Jimmy's going to get there with a fever, and you can't leave him at the bus stop. I get that, because that would be child abandonment.
So,
But then you're going to put him with the other 40 kids on the bus to isolate? What does he do? I'll shut up now.
it's going to end on us. So I just want to let you know there's a new link in the chat again. So when this disconnects, you come on over to the new meeting, and we're going to talk about Believe in Booker on that call.
Sorry.
That's okay.
No, I get you. It's
Good stuff.
so up in the air. It's crazy. I don't know. And did you hear how they said, well, even if they don't take the temperatures on the bus, they'll just take the parents' word for it.
Oh, that could happen.
So, Brad, I just want to let you know that we were just wrapping up the call for the tax increase that JCPS has proposed, and we have a different coalition that's been working on strategy and messaging and execution around that. So you caught the tail end of that, and a lot of these individuals are interested in, being part of the Believe in Booker campaign as well. So you've got Jennifer who came over to hear what we're talking about on the call, and hopefully Kenyatta is going to be joining us as well.
She just said she needed a password, Gay.
Oh, they did that. They did that to her last time too. Yvonne, how did we fix that? Did you have to send her the?
Sorry?
How did we help her with that last time? Because I don't need a password when I get in.
I don't need a password.
She says she needs a password.
I wonder if it's the.
Let's give her the whole thingy.
Yeah. Do you have it, or do you want me to? Here, let me do it again. I got it. I gotta plug my laptop in. That is so weird. Oh, that's you.
Does Kenyatta maybe not have the app downloaded on her computer and she's doing it on the web?
The old-fashioned way.
Yeah, because I think Dennett wants one, maybe.
So new people on the call. We've got Brad Harrison. Does everybody know Brad? Know him or know of him?
I don't have the pleasure of knowing him, but I've been following him lately, and it's a pleasure to meet you finally.
Yes, like in real person, almost.
Much respect, dude.
So Jennifer, in case you're not aware, Brad is.
Hi, Brad.
He's a very well-known social media presence. Oh wait, here Kimberly's joining us. Okay. And he has Urban Max magazine and Urban Voices Radio, and he's just a very outspoken advocate in our community. So very well respected in our community. And,
Awesome. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And Kenyatta and Jennifer are both teachers in JCPS who have been helping on the tax revenue strategy team. And I'm sharing my screen. Those are old messages I need to get back to. Here. And Kimberly, are you with us? I see that you're in the room.
Yes, I am.
All right, Kimberly is the counselor at Maupin that I was telling you guys about earlier. She's here on the call with us. And Bethany was on. I hope she comes back. Bethany is with the PAC that we've been using so that we can do everything campaign fundraising wise by the book and not go to jail. And we like that. We like not going to jail.
It's pretty esoteric stuff. I'm glad it's not me having to keep track of all that.
Yeah, so because of campaign finance laws, candidates are only allowed to raise $2,000 per donor. And so if somebody wanted to give $10,000, they could give to a PAC, and the PAC could spend it however they want. But if the PAC were to coordinate with the candidate, then that would be a workaround to the contribution limit. So they put a big wall of separation up and say that PACs are not allowed to coordinate with candidates. So that's one of the questions we run into a lot is we'll be doing something and somebody will say, well, did you check with the Booker team? And I get that you don't want to step on the Booker team's toes. I get that idea, that concept, but that's actually illegal. So we run into that a lot, and it's important that members of our team know that, because also if you are working with a campaign, if you've been canvassing for a campaign, And if it was for the primary and that's now behind you and you are not going to be canvassing for the campaign going forward, then we welcome you in this group. But if you intend to continue working with not just Charles Booker's campaign, but any candidate that's running up for the November election, you would need to choose. You need to be in the PAC or working with the PAC or working with the campaign, and not both, because that could be perceived as campaign coordination, even though you and I know that's probably not what would really happen. You're just knocking on doors or whatever. We want to do everything by the book. We want to make sure that we do not have any appearance of impropriety, because it could be used against us. And it's really important that we keep that perception with beyond reproach. So just a little bit of background on the Believe in Booker campaign.
Thanks for the heads up. I did make phone calls for Booker's campaign during the primaries, but because of where I live, my service was kind of spotty, and for my computer and my phone, so it made it difficult for me to make calls. So I ended up having to stop trying to make phone calls for them. So any other way that I can help move him into that position, I am more than willing to help, as long as I don't have to make phone calls.
There are plenty of ways to make a difference. Absolutely. And it looks like Bethany is now on the call. And Bethany, I just got through explaining the walls of separation and the PAC and the whole thing. So if you have anything you want to add, you can know that I've already covered the caveats that we need to make sure nobody in here is working actively with a campaign, and why we can't coordinate and that kind of. And since she's not saying anything, she has her son with her. So I'll just go ahead and move into the agenda. I want to go through the Zoom room, and ask those who were part of the Believe in Booker campaign up to this point for the primary, what were the things that you thought we did well, and what were the things that you thought we could use improvement? And hang on, Sherry's joining us. So I'm going to ask that. I'm going to intro it one more time. We just added Sherry. Hey, Sherry. Sherry's also a teacher. She's at Western High School. And she was down at the fairgrounds with us until the bitter end. So we witnessed some amazing things Tuesday, and I can't wait to share them with you guys. Bethany and some of us are working on hopefully a little 2 or 3 minute video of some of the milestone markers that show where there's room for improvement. So maybe instead of making you guys sit through about 6 hours worth of video, we can get it down into a couple of snippets that really tell a story pretty powerfully. So that's something that I'm looking forward to working with some of the members on this team on. But Sherry, I just kicked it off with the question. We're going to go around the room, and I want to hear from each of you that were part of the events up to and including all the way through Tuesday night. What did you think we did well, and what do you think we could improve on? I'd like to hear from everybody, your thoughts on those two ideas. Whoever wants to go first.
I'd just say again, talking about Tuesday, what we did well, what we need to improve. Okay, didn't hear that part.
Or anything leading up to it. It could have been a major connection we made that just really kind of shaped direction. I'd say connecting with Bethany was a major connection that we made that really helped shape our ability to get stuff done quickly. So that's an example.
I hope so. I hope I made a good contribution. I was on mute because I'm pretty sure you guys don't want to hear singing Walrus in the background for all you fellow parents out there. And so, yeah, I think if I had to contribute anything that we can improve upon, it's having a geographical based organization, which we did not have the ability to do in the time frame that we had. But with more time, if we could have some some clear, like, this is who's dealing in this geographic area and where that boundary is. This is who's dealing with this geographical area, because we were dealing with several areas, and not just across the state, but with the size and volume of Louisville. That was also, I know there's only one polling place in Louisville, but we were dealing with multiple districts of Louisville in a lot of ways, with a different capture and audience. So if we could focus our efforts on that, and also having a clearly defined, from my perspective and what my part is, having a clearly defined budget in advance and in writing. Again, these were all things where we were working so fast that it wasn't possible. But now that there's more time, making sure that we have that clearly defined budget, so we're not scrambling with, oh, can we pay this? And, oh, we have this expense. And that makes it easier to understand what volume of contribution we need financially in advance. So that's my contribution. On the good side, the video documentation was incredible and powerful. It put people there. It put people, it allows for empathy from people who weren't physically there. And, you know, you can say 1,000 times that something happened, but if you have the documentation of it in video form, it's undeniable. And what we saw, and what we saw a lot of people responding to nationally, is that it was very clear that disproportionately in Louisville, this was affecting minorities who were not able to vote. And that is criminal, in my opinion. So we did an excellent job in that, and maintaining communication in some form throughout the day was constantly happening. And I think, though it needed to be more organized, that was excellent that we maintained that communication. So that's my 2 cents, and then I'll shut up. So.
I agree with everything you said.
Do we have aerial footage or any kind of footage about the traffic, like the way Neema's talked last night? It was back on the ramp. I didn't realize that. Like, I knew that it was coming into the entrance and it went out to Crittenden Drive, but he acted like even the Watterson was backed up, the ramp. Did they get, is there WLKY footage or anything like that for that? Because none of us could see that, we're from inside up at the front.
I didn't see any aerial footage. I would like to see if we can find some. I never really saw helicopters flying overhead either when we were trying to get visibility to our signs. So I was really disappointed with the lack of attention.
There was some helicopter late. There was one flying around.
Okay.
I don't remember how late.
Traffic might have dissipated by then too. But I don't know if you saw, there's a video where I walked out onto Crittenden Drive, like in the busy part of the street where everybody was in stop and go traffic, and talked to people as they were coming in. And one lady, I asked her how long she'd been in the line, and she said 10 minutes. So we knew that it was 10 minutes past gate 2, and it was out on, and she did say it was out onto the highway. So, and I kind of backed away from the line of traffic and looked down that direction, and you could see cars all the way to the end. So that's the closest I got to that kind of footage.
Did you happen to snap a picture of that in any way, or is it in video?
It's in video. We could do a screenshot
Okay.
for sure.
And that's one of the places that you worked in time? Okay, excellent.
Well, I know the only thing that we were lacking, that I was thankful for the Booker campaign that came pretty early, was that big tent. Like, if that tent wasn't there, besides being drenched at 9 o'clock in the morning, we would have then been burnt in the afternoon, like no shade whatsoever. So that was a big relief.
Yeah, that was convenient that they showed up.
The donations pouring in, I don't know where all that stuff was coming from, the water and the snacks, and it just, everybody was like, you need some more snacks, you need more water, you need more, and then people were like, hey, you got snacks, you got water, yeah, take it, but it was like, where did all this, like, I left for that between 10 and 2 and got back I got back at about 3, and I was like, there's like 15 cases of water sitting there, and plus 2 other people passing it out. So that was nice. And then somebody brought pizzas and just left them there and said, here's pizza. Like,
Good, good.
yeah.
Yeah, I was worried about you guys.
I don't know. It seemed like the plan developed so late, or all the details for Jefferson County were trickling out. So, you know, we knew we could ask for absentee ballots early, but, you know, my thing was I requested one. How did I do that the first time? It wasn't, I had to get the application first. So it was before that the direct request came out. So then they sent the application and I'm thinking, so I have to fill out the application, mail that back in, then they'll mail this, and then I have to mail it back. And then the link came out and I was like, well, let me just do this. It'll be faster. Well, that's a big no-no. You can't do both of those. They didn't like that. So I got caught in that you're not going to get one because it's locked up. And so I had to spend the 50 minutes on hold to get somebody else to release it. So that, and then I got it fairly quickly after that. But this was between early May and then got it in, maybe June 1st or June, you know, in the first week of June. So,
But Sherry, that's exactly what I was telling you last night. We did the part where you had to get the application and fill it out. My husband and I did that.
mhm.
And my son. We did it where we had to get the application by email, sign it, send it back in to get the absentee ballot.
Yeah.
And then we was like, oh, well, they got this govote.ky or whatever. We'll just go to this and request it again. So we all three did it. My son still got his ballot. And he never had to wait on hold for 2 hours with the election board to get his ballot released. But I did.
Yeah. Yeah. And it seems like, why would that cause an error? You know, it's like whatever came second would have canceled out. You know, like if I did it online and okay, here it is. You never got my application back. I didn't send in the application and request it online. So when you got that application back, it'd just be, nope, don't, we've already done that. But I don't know.
Well,
Just I don't understand why there's not an automatic button that when somebody dies, their voter registration now is gone so that we don't have to do all of this voter purging anymore. Why isn't there a streamlined system for them that says, hey, this person is deceased, so we can take their voter registration card out of the system so we don't have to keep on worrying about whether or not there's going to be some fraud with their election results later on.
You have to keep checking every so often if it's purging routinely. So I remember on May 26th when they switched from the application to from the old-fashioned way to the better way, but the county clerk's website didn't get updated for several days, so people were still clicking on the old link and still getting confused. And then when they did say they're going to open up the polls early and let people go down to the fairgrounds and vote early, it still took them several days to get that on their website. And so one of the things, another video that I documented Tuesday was him saying to me, 15 days. We told them 15 days. And, you know, it came out of his brain 15 days ago, but that doesn't mean it made it into other people's brains 15 days ago. And, you know, he fails to recognize people that were waiting for their ballots and people that don't have time off work and didn't have a communication channel that was reliable. And plus, they may have heard it accurately one time, but then they heard it inaccurately another, and then getting on the phone and all the barriers. These are all barriers. So that was a really privileged thing for him to say, and I flat out said so. So there's an interesting video floating around where somebody was recording inside the election hall, and I was outside recording, so you can't hear him on my recording and you can't hear me on his recording. I'd like to get those two together somehow. That might be kind of interesting. But I saw that was out there floating around. It's kind of fun. So who else? Who's next?
I think a well job done was, I watched the video, Gabe. I think you did a great job with and when they locked the doors, informing people about what they need to do, because people were going to leave. They were going to leave. They didn't know an injunction was being, they didn't even know with a lot. There wasn't a line apparently, so I guess there wasn't a line, and people didn't have any information. So you kind of took the lead on that. That was great. I know we got together rather quickly, so we couldn't work on it. But I was just surprised at how many people weren't aware that early voting took place. So many people weren't aware. So maybe if they do early voting in November, maybe we can do a better job of making people aware. But the place looked. I went that Friday. Did I go Friday? I went Friday. It was empty. There may have been, when I went Friday at 4 p.m., there may have been 15 people there voting. And I heard that was kind of consistent throughout the entire week.
Yeah, the guy told me on Monday, I dropped off my absentee ballot on Monday, and we had gone, Gay and I don't remember, Bill and somebody else had gone like Wednesday of last week. And the guy told me Monday that it had been, increasing each day, but it still wasn't a very high volume at all.
Nothing
And I guess,
the afternoon.
yeah, if we could have, well, of course, TARC wasn't offering free at that point, and then the campaign wasn't doing anything at that point. They were waiting for election day. But if we could have gotten, even if it was once or twice a day,
Yep.
whatever, 11 a.m. or 9 a.m. and whatever, 3 p.m. or something like that, to get some of those people, and maybe it was protesters, people from downtown where they're already in a big group, and it's like, hey, it'll take an hour to get out there to everybody, even everybody at one time. They could have all gone in at one time and voted. A busload of people could have. Would have been a good thing.
We did try to work with people at the square. The protest.
Did many people utilize the TARC services?
I think so.
I couldn't see where they were. They were dropping off on the far end, it seemed like. So I couldn't see how many people were getting off. The charter buses did not seem very full, like under 10 people when the highest one was about 9 or 10, I think. It was, they were trickling 3 or 4. And I don't know if it was just, at first the bus drivers thought people didn't know what it was, wasn't marked. So they put some placards in the windows eventually, like in the front window, the big signs that the campaign brought, so that they knew, oh, that bus is with Booker campaign, and they knew what it was. Even though they had heard probably that there's transportation, they didn't realize this big charter bus is it. Because the guy said people are just looking, he coming through the neighborhood and people are looking at him like, what are you doing, But I think it helped when they put those placards on there. A big magnet would have been great.
So what time did the surge really start at the fairgrounds?
So I was coming back from checking on other stations around 3:30, and I had to wait in traffic for 30 minutes. And so that alarmed me. And I called my friend Rob Matthew, who's really visible on Twitter, and I said, could you do me a favor? And he was cleaning his cat litter box. And I said, when you get through with the cat litter box, can you get on social media and just raise awareness that there's a backup at the fairgrounds? And he was like, well, that's not unusual. It happens every fair. And I'm like, good point. We should have thought of this, and there's really nobody directing traffic. And it was kind of free for all. Everybody was on their own. And no matter what gate you came in, you still had to get in that top of the queue and come on down, and single file. It was one lane of cars. And so I think it started around probably earlier, but I'm aware of it starting at 3 and only getting worse. The people that came in right at the group of people that almost didn't get to vote, I asked them how long they had been waiting, and one lady said an hour and 10 minutes. So the car traffic alone, being backed up to the highway, clearly caused a delay. And Yvonne and Sherry, I think, and others that I've talked to since then, we've kind of said, hey, wait a minute, especially in the era of COVID, why wasn't the drive-through considered part of the line? Because that's social distancing. Everybody stay in your cars. We're doing drive-through churches. Why shouldn't we do drive-through election lineup until you get to the fairgrounds? Because even the fairgrounds wasn't marked on the ground 6 feet apart. They knew that there was spacing. They knew they weren't going to be crowded, so they never even created spacing because the backup was really traffic. So what I think they should have done is had a car, just like the pace car at the Indy 500 that gets in line at the last car at 6 o'clock and nobody can get in line behind them. It's the era of COVID way of standing in line. That's the line. They were in line. So technically, they were in line and they didn't get to vote. And that is a violation.
Mhm.
That answer your question though about when it started backing up and where you going?
Yeah. It seems like, were you in there when I got back? Because I came in right around 3, and I was shocked at how many cars were in line. But I was inside the gate, and even coming in the gate though, everybody was in the same like thing. I was like, there's 4 gates open, people, like 4 lines here. But it quickly went, we were in 4 wide going through like the Kentucky Kingdom, that little crosswalk there. And then instead of being able to go, some of us go, like half of us go around to the front and come up the middle, we all had to go in that far corner. So it went, and that was the only traffic control there was a cop car blocking those lanes so you could not go to the front. So everybody had to squeeze into the parking lot. And at that point, it was a free-for-all.
Yep.
And, Louisville drivers don't do free-for-alls.
And that main gate not being open didn't allow for that channeling of cars that normally occurs. So that was another disadvantage.
Yeah.
It was under construction.
In messaging regarding all of this, one of the things that keeps getting lost, everybody wants to point to, well, the governor is a Democrat. But this is all facilitated by the Secretary of State. That message isn't getting out there. It's not getting out there nationally, and it's not getting out there to people who aren't as heavily engaged as the people in this call and involved in this. So it needs to be stressed that the person who was in charge of facilitating this with all of the county clerks is the Secretary of State, who is a Republican.
And going forward, especially, they're having a committee to look at November. The freaking National Guard is on this committee, but the governor is not.
And that
It's
right
all
there,
Republican all the time.
that right there needs to be stressed to the public so that they understand where the responsibility lies in who is facilitating and not facilitating the elections, and who is responsible for the problems that are being addressed.
Right.
When you have the National Guard on a committee, but not the governor, that's concerning. In fact, you have to wonder what a national military organization who's supposed to be nonpartisan in every way is doing.
Who's already made a great impression in Jefferson County, by
Right.
the way.
Look at what they're doing tomorrow. Are you aware?
Mm-hmm. So,
Oh, I don't know.
No, they're having the one guy that started it apparently was Guard. Is that what it was? The big, the armed protest
racist.
for the protests. Kenyatta, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. Last night, I think at that point I had kind of just like
Had to move a little bit.
glazed over. But Jason was talking about the way the regulations for adjusting the primary versus the regulations for the general election, and how it just took the governor and the Secretary of State to come to an agreement for the early voting and the absentee ballots. But in order to do something in the general, it had to be
They have to change laws or something like that. Is that what he said?
Yeah, that's what I thought he said. Mm-hmm. And that would be, bring back the legislature for a special session, which we know is just not
Scary.
Yeah.
Can you pursue that and get that a little more nailed down so we know what that language is that they're talking about?
Yeah, and to follow up with that, what that is that primaries are facilitated, or how they are executed is determined by their party, which is why a few years ago, I guess, they did a caucus for the Republican primary instead of a primary vote so that Rand Paul could be on the presidential ballot to circumvent the law for can't be in two different offices. So that's where that's coming from. And if you need any help finding that statute, let me know, because I used to work for LRC once upon a time.
Okay.
So, oh, thank you, sweet boy.
So I just got another 10-minute warning. And for those of you who weren't on my previous calls, I just renewed my Zoom account today. And so it apparently needs a 24-hour notice before it gives me unlimited time again. So I'm having to start my meetings every 4 minutes today, 40 minutes. I apologize for that, but let's see how much more we can get done in the next 8 or 9 minutes, and then we'll start another meeting. Because I want to keep going around the room and hear what you guys think we did well and what we had room for improvement. And Brad, I think I heard some of the things you thought we did well. Did you have a room for improvement?
The room for improvement. I don't. Other than the awareness, I mean, I think everybody, for the limited time, I think everything went pretty smooth.
I think so too. I mean, we made a difference. We made a difference. There's no question. Kimberly, you were at in Justice Square Park for a couple of hours. How'd that go?
Well, Will was there longer than I was. He was there the whole day, and I was only there a few hours. But I feel like nobody really needed a ride, and so we didn't really do much. Even though it was good to be down there among people and just talk to people, but we didn't really do anything.
So if we had to skip something in the future, that would be worth considering skipping.
You know what? Because recently, the park, it's become a homeless camp.
It has.
Yep.
Yep, it's become a homeless camp.
They're not registered to vote because they don't have an address.
Yeah. I don't know when that happened. I showed up a couple days ago, and I was like, wow, the tents are out. And I mean, I get it. There's food, there's refreshments, there's everything close, so it's going to attract the homeless, but that's pretty much what it is now.
Yeah, and there's safety for them too. So.
Yeah.
Our homeless population can register to vote if they utilize an address that they stay at regularly, which can include a shelter. So that is a little known law that it can be used to incorporate disenfranchised citizens, just so you know.
Yeah.
Unless that has changed, which it wouldn't surprise me if Damon Thayer figured out a way to do that on the sneaky sneak on a short session year. But yeah, you can utilize an address that you stay at regularly, and that does allow you to register to vote. The problem there is the new voter ID law. Being able to get an identification with an address is a little bit more difficult. So.
And look, I'm concerned that how the city has been kind of vigilant on like shuffling the homeless around. I'm concerned they're going to use that as an excuse to close that park down.
Good talking.
Yep.
Have you heard any rumblings about that? Has there been any discussion taking place?
You know what? I have. And what I heard something about they have a 21-day something. There's a 21-day rule or something they had to give the homeless, like a 21-day notice before they move them around. But that didn't really concern me as much as apparently there's been plans to remodel this park for the past 3 or 4 years. And I guess now's the time they want to start to move forward with it.
So they've got an excuse to do it. They're using the Rudy Giuliani method.
Yeah.
Nice.
Those hot dog vendors, very scary.
Some of the homeless did mention that they can't read and write, and so that discourages them from voting. So that's another obstacle. I don't know if they allow someone to read them the ballot, or like we do in school for kids that can't read and need accommodations.
Yes,
But
they do. 2 witnesses need to sign in order to be sure that it was executed the way that the person requested. But yes, they can have a facilitator read them the ballot and mark it for them.
What about
Okay.
like on location, like come into the polling booth with you and read the ballot?
Yes, and that should be part of the training of the poll people, that if somebody says, I have trouble reading, could somebody, they're supposed to facilitate that also for the elderly when they have issues with, or the visually impaired, when they have issues being able to see to read the ballot as well. But there is supposed to be 2 separate witnesses who watch to make sure the ballot is being executed as the voter has requested.
All right, that's good to know. So I want to respond to something Kimberly said too about, people down there not needing rides. One of the things that we tried to do in our short time frame was reach out to other organizations that had a presence down there to see what they were planning to do, so we didn't step on any toes, so we didn't duplicate efforts, and we really kind of hit some walls. Mostly along the lines, it just wasn't on people's radars. People were focused on police accountability, rightfully so. They were focused on the marches and the things that were happening at the square. And so it appears that on Monday, everybody decided, hey, we need to offer rides, and rides were well covered, at least in Jefferson County. It felt like between the Booker campaign and the Lyft and the Black Lives Matter groups that were given rides, and we had a couple of people volunteer to drive for us, and all we were going to ask them to do was drive from the park to the park station, so they could just keep a little shuttle going back and forth along those lines. But I think that it just turned out that a lot of groups stepped up at the last minute, and that's all great. That's all great. In the future, maybe we could do a little better job dividing and conquering along those lines, though, Kimberly.
So if like the general election or any other elections are multiple days where you can go in person, then we will need rides on all of those days, free rides possibly,
Yeah.
instead of waiting to the last minute, because I think that's what really hurt, the last minute rush.
Yeah, for sure. So we were talking about rides to the polls each day the polls are open. So one of the things that I was going to say, and I guess I'll do my turn if Kimberly was finished with what she thought we did well and what she thought we had room to improve. If not, come back after me, Kimberly, and finish up. But I think what we did well is simply build something from scratch that we've never done before. And it's like learning to play an orchestra. We all had to learn our musical instruments and practice doing it together. And some of us have played together. I'm not a musician, so I don't have very many analogies for music, but many of us have played together before. And so we were able to kind of just pick up where we left off. And that made us a pretty good team. And then everything that we accomplished was incrementally more than what we would have accomplished if we had done nothing. So I think we had a really good dress rehearsal, and we're only going to get better as we head into the general and hopefully raise more money so that we can scale what we've been doing and bring others along. It's important that we don't keep trying to do all this work ourselves. We've got 4 months to train others and mentor others and bring them into this movement. And the movement is going where the movement's going to go. There's a right answer. There's the right side of history. And our job is simply to facilitate it, to speed it up. We're not trying to manipulate it in any way. We're trying to prevent those who want to manipulate it from being successful. And those are people who have privatization agendas, whose jobs are comfortable. The white supremacists, the colonizers, those who are comfortable with status quo are going to do what they can to disrupt our efforts. And so that's why it's important that, especially now that we've shown our hand, they now know we exist. And there are going to be copycats. There are going to be people who either try to copy what we do and take our momentum and make it profitable for themselves, beneficial for themselves, or there are going to be people who try to derail us completely because our success is going to be, be costly to them. So, but that's what I think we did well, and there's always room for improvement. But I guess if my room for improvement would be, we need to raise more money. We need to seize this window of opportunity, turn it into money from out of state. There are so many people that donated to Amy McGrath's campaign because they did so because they want Mitch gone. They didn't understand the local dynamics, and we overcame their lack of knowledge and their flood of money. But now let's shift that flood of money to where it's actually going to do some good. And Charles, because of the $2,000 campaign contribution limits, there are going to be people outside of state who give everything they can to Charles, and they want to do more. That's where we come in handy. So we've really got two time frames left, and one is between now and June 30th when the results are known. We have to kind of keep that all eyes on Kentucky message. We can't trust. We can't just sit back and wait for the results and then go, oh no, somebody did something they shouldn't have done, and by then there's no national interest in us. We have to keep the national interest up. And even if that is just planting the seed that there could still be some shenanigans, help us, you out-of-state friends, help us keep that the money coming in, because we've got to start preparing for the general election. But we've also got to make sure that we put that stake in the ground so it doesn't retreat in any way. So keep sharing the links. I spent about $4,000 of my grant money that I would like to at least recover, because that's money that I can't spend on the next campaign. And I wanted to spend some of that money on the Stand with JCPS tax increase campaign, so we can get some seed money there, but also to create some structure that gives us more longevity, like the 501c4 that Marty talked about creating, so that they can manipulate the outcome of this movement. Nope, that's not how this works. We're going to start that 501c4, and that means I'm going to have some, $400 or $500 in legal expenses. So I want to recoup the grant money so that we can make sure we keep putting it back into the work that needs to be done and amplify it. Like, it's an investment, and if we can keep the message out there and start getting some of those viral messages, keep sharing the commercials. Like, even that commercial that Bethany made is still timely, because we're still waiting to hear if coming around the bend. So let's share the shit out of that. We may not have gotten the attention just because there was so much noise. So maybe now is the time to relaunch that campaign. So if everybody can, even if you're not on Twitter, get on Twitter, get on Instagram, and get on Facebook, and share the crap out of these key strategic messages and the voter suppression message. Because back to that, even if it turns out Booker wins and we don't have to challenge whether or not people were turned away, we still have to fix it for the general. We still have to make sure that these things don't happen again, that they're aware of all the places where the voters' access broke down, the mail-in ballots that were never received in time. And that's why there was a big rush, is because a lot of people were waiting for their mail until the last day. We ran into a lot of people that said that. So those are my thoughts on what we did well and where we have room for improvement. And Kimberly, I'm going to circle back to you to make sure I didn't miss anything that you said. If you're still on the call. Is she still on the call? Yes. She's there. She's muted. All right, I'm going to skip you in case you stepped away. Sherry, what did we do well, and you didn't go yet, did you?
Yes, I kind of did.
Okay.
The only thing I see the big difference will be getting some our tentacles out in the rest of the state.
Yes.
People who aren't, because they can't be with the campaign, right? So, but how do we find people out in the state, not with the campaign, but willing to work with us, basically?
Yeah, and that's something that needs more intentional focus. We made some strides in that area by just looking at who was organizing the protests in those communities where we saw the Black Lives Matter protests, and some of the more engaged communities that we could tell were pro Booker. we just kind of reached out and looked in the newspaper at who had been quoted, and we connected with Ashland, Kentucky through that method. And then I had a friend that we had connected with through Save Our Schools a couple of years ago when we were fighting charter schools. And so she was our Pike County connection. And, so what we ended up doing could have scaled easily to these other communities. I tried to find someone in Lexington, but believe it or not, Brad delivered some hats and stickers and masks to Lexington for us, and I couldn't find anyone to be the recipient, so I had to just randomly call a bookstore, and it turned out that he happened to be a Booker fan. So he became the unofficial Believe in Booker campaign headquarters that day, but that was very last minute because most of the people in Lexington that I knew were pro Mike Rohier, or however you pronounce his name. And they weren't willing to acknowledge that Mike couldn't win and that was just canceling votes. And luckily we saw Lexington still delivered, but through our networks, it was not as, pro Booker, anti-racist, justice, no peace kind of movement. It seemed a little bit more soft. So.
Well, I may be able to help with that, given that that's my geographic location. I'm just outside of Lexington here in Richmond, and I do know quite a few of the folks. The problem is that I'm, I deal with the county boards a lot and am pretty involved with the Democratic Party on a statewide level. So the people I know are actually part of the executive board in Fayette County, or in some way they're hosting fundraisers and things like that. And let me tell you, the people on the Fayette County executive board were actually huge Booker fans, and they were spending their side time actually promoting him, which I think we saw with the votes there in their in-person voting where that percentage led. But I may be able to help with that, and also reach out to some folks in Berea. Berea has a very, very activist community. And here in Richmond, I think our Black Lives Matter protest was almost 600 people. And it was put together by two 19-year-old dynamic, fantastic young women. That's 500-600 people that I think would 100% show up to help with this initiative. So let me see what I can do, because just geographically, if I even don't find somebody in Lexington, I may find somebody in Richmond who can find somebody in Lexington. And that's important because that is obviously the second highest voter area.
Yeah.
And Fayette County had totally different rules than Jefferson.
Yeah.
Their in-person voting, their early voting, you had to call the county clerk's office and make an appointment first. They were really making it as difficult as possible in Fayette County to vote in person because they really, really wanted people to do mail-in voting.
Right.
So they made it kind of a hassle, and they did not even mind saying, we're making it hard for you because we want you to get a mail-in ballot.
Right.
So there were people who didn't know, but the information they were getting applied to other counties, but not to Fayette County. And we've got to be able to facilitate. That's why I say that geographic division is important, because there's different rules depending on where you are.
I feel like that Facebook almost hurt Kentucky, just because people were saying things that were true for their county, and
Right.
And it was like, just drop off your ballot to any county clerk. And I'm like, no, there's one place in Jefferson County. Before the early voting started, there was one place to drop your vote or to vote in absentee. There was not, and not any. Our clerk's offices aren't even open. But every county was so different and just assumed, hey, it's a state. We're all doing it.
And if we had enough lead time, and one of the things we talked about, but clearly we never were in a position to execute, was to be an aggregator of information, to create a website that you could go to click on your county and get the information that you need. And maybe between now and November, assuming that these counties actually figure out, that's part of it too, is we can't publish what we don't know. And if they haven't made up their minds yet, and 2 days before the election, it's like, oh yeah, if you didn't get your mail-in ballot, you can actually go vote in person. Well, we didn't know that until 2 days before the election. So, you know,
Yeah, I think we need to come up with some, and maybe based on the law first, because I'm not, 100% sure, the possibilities, what's the worst case that they're going to do on, for the general, and what are in between, what's possible in between all those things.
Right.
Yeah, I don't see how we can, I don't see how if it's not legal now, surely to God, in the next session, they will make early voting a thing. And really we need to push for weekend. Okay, you don't want to give us a week, give us Friday, give us Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
9 p.m. Why 6 p.m.? People work. They have to travel all the way across county or even from another state. A lot of people work in Indiana and they're coming from, across the bridge and rush hour traffic. No.
6 p.m. is a leftover from when people would buy votes with shots of whiskey. So the bars couldn't open until the polls closed.
But they've already eliminated that alcohol law. They just forgot to update.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of things are leftovers, and it's dumb to keep them, is what I'm trying to say. I didn't say very well.
No, they don't do a good job cleaning up the KRS when they're changing things. A couple of thoughts, and then I actually have to go. One is that possibly one of our initiatives could be pressing the Secretary of State's office to have a decision made by, say, July 31st, and with a full website that explains everything, and pushing for that. That helps get the narrative out of, this is who's responsible. It's your Republican Secretary of State. And if he isn't meeting this deadline to get this information to voters, then clearly it's not important to him.
That's right.
So that might be, and if we can facilitate opening that policy window with a public campaign that way, it may help. I mean, if he actually responds, then we have better voting procedures in the fall. And if he doesn't, then we have something else to campaign on. Second, yes, I can't stress fundraising enough. None of this stuff gets done for free, and we all have to be proselytizing what it is that we're doing and that we need people's financial support. And it just can't get done without it. And so those links, we have both the Kentuckians for Real Options, which is the UCC that I run, that's going to be facilitating this, the contributions, and the Believe in Booker Facebook site. Sharing both of those help get that message across, and getting friends to share them as well. Third, with the early voting, if they're doing that again, we could actually utilize Facebook to allow people to make an appointment, which is part of a page. It's there in setting up options. We could say, have the button say set up an appointment, and allow people to book a time. And we could mark off where we know we have volunteers during this time block available. So it also helps track who's volunteering at what time to do this during that 2-week period. And it tracks, okay, this is where that person needs to go. And Facebook can easily facilitate that. It's right there in the settings for admin. So that's more kind of to you, Gay. But if we do that, then that needs to be something that once we know that that's what they're doing, we get that information out to the public. You can early vote. Here's where you sign up to do that. It's right here. And in that regard, if that is what's happening, we may need to set up a separate Facebook page for each geographic region, so that we don't have somebody in Pikeville requesting a ride, and then we have a volunteer, but they're in Louisville. It don't work.
Right.
Um,
And, you know, and that is certainly part of the scalable goal. And like Patricia Rogers in Pikeville had her own Let's Talk EKY Facebook page that she started to try to get that conversation going. I helped her get an email address with that domain name. So she has a website now. And those are things that it cost me $20, so I went ahead and did it. But those are the kinds of services that we can offer too to these communities that don't know where to start. We give them this template and these tools that overcome their initial startup hurdles. And another thing that Bethany and I wanted to work on, we just ran out of time, is a slate in these markets. So tying Charles Booker's space with a down ballot candidate, you know, as agents for change or whatever that message is that works in those markets, is something that we really wanted to do, because there were a lot of opportunities to usher in other candidates for the primary. You know, good progressive. Let's get rid of that stagnant old 30 plus. Oh, how old is Tom Birch? How long has Tom Birch been in?
He has been in the Kentucky House since 1972. That is 9 years before I was born.
So
My mom was not even in high school yet.
I wasn't in high school yet either.
I mean,
so we
I was barely not in high school, but I was not in high school.
I run political campaigns. I've met multiple presidents. That's how old I am. And this man has been in office since 9 years before I was born.
He doesn't always show up to vote, and when he does, he's not always on the right side. And yeah, he had one really great quote that, you know, saved his career probably, but he's not really. So we were trying to get people to focus on a progressive candidate that did not have the Democratic Party's support. These are grassroots candidates, and the Democratic Party will go out of its way to sabotage the true candidates who are progressive and bringing about change. So we are anti-establishment. We're not anti-Democrat. We're not anti-Republican. We are anti-stagnant, you know, getting in the way of progress. So we did try to lift up some of those candidates. That
I'll make sure you get that link, Brad.
I think you
Gone.
Yeah, I saw his. I hope he caught me saying that. I'll send it to him on Facebook.
I had asked him to reach out to Hannah Drake too.
And that is the mission of the UCC that I run, is that it's not specifically for, you know, but I happen to be a person who works with the Democratic Party, but the UCC is actually set up to assist not Democrats or Republicans, but to assist agents of change.
Right.
Because, you know, you may have a third party candidate in an area, or the only challenger, nobody ran Democrat, but there's a challenger in the Republican primary who's more progressive than the candidate that, so yeah, let's at least get the guy we know we can work with. So anyway.
Not afraid. Everybody's afraid to endorse the non-incumbent, or because, you know, what if the incumbent wins and he's your enemy or whatever? We gotta stop giving these people passes. No, they just vote however they want when we do that.
Yeah, I've only ever seen that in Kentucky. That where I'm from in Maryland, it's more of a that's just business. Now politics is business. Now we've moved on, the election's over. So like now there's no like going back and getting vengeance. Yeah.
No, that's weird here, isn't it?
Yeah, but I also don't understand why the political party headquarters isn't in bars, because all of Maryland's like county headquarters are also bars, and like you go to the Repub to get really good wings, but you go to the Democratic Club for the hamburgers, and they have beer. So I don't understand that here, and everybody's like, you can't drink. I'm like, why? Your whole state is known for booze. Like, why can't you drink it?
Time for change. All right, let's change it while we're at it.
With that, I've got to go. If there's any other information, please feel free to send it to me on Facebook, and I'll be working on those videos and getting them clipped together.
Great.
And would really like to see us going forward with some sort of budget, at least tentative skeleton version. And after June 30th, I think there definitely needs to be a conversation if the worst happens and Amy wins, how we go forward and what our mission becomes after that.
Well,
So,
and before you hop off, let me say something to that, because if Amy does win, I think we go back to all the voter suppression and we continue to challenge this in court, and we do what we can to stay in the private, in the visibility, because the message still has to be out there.
Right.
The Breonna Taylor story has to stay out there. The changes that we're making to our schools needs to stay out there. We've got such a great story to tell. If we can capture the national attention and start shaping the narrative, we can talk about how we stopped vouchers. We can talk about how we stopped charter schools. We can talk about how we stopped a state takeover. You know, there are a lot of things that people don't even know that we've accomplished, that if we can just get their attention for just a minute, they can look and say, look at what is oh my God, look at what is happening in Kentucky. And then they can start having even more confidence in our ability to put Charles Booker in place and get rid of Mitch McConnell. I mean, the story sells itself if we can just get their attention for 2 seconds.
What are the rules? I mean, I know we can't work with the campaign, but that's pretty broad. So, I mean, we can talk to them, right? And
no,
none of us, like,
you're not coordinate in any way. Technically, you can, but you cannot pass messages in any way between me and that campaign. My husband and I are both the registered people on it, and Anna Whites is the lawyer, legal representation that facilitates our UCC. So if there is thought to be any communication between the 3 of us and that campaign, I get to see pictures of my son go to kindergarten from jail, but I don't get to see it personally.
I'm just wondering, like, what their thoughts are, or about filing, you know, the appeal or the whatever.
Right. So currently they're trying to raise 500. I think currently they're trying to raise 500,000. Now, there is no way that there can be a wall of separation in Kentucky in information that is pure. It just doesn't exist. Nobody keeps their mouth shut in Kentucky when it comes, nobody in politics has the ability to keep their mouth shut. I've been talking for 38 years straight. I can't help it. I don't mean to, but there it is. And I don't know anybody who's in politics who has that ability either. That's why everything we do is running 45 minutes late and it's lasting 2 hours longer than it's supposed to. But so information ends up crossing paths. The key important thing is that we're not passing phone calls. You're not going to them and saying, hey, you know, this is what we're doing. What are you doing? What do you want us to do? Those conversations can't really take place. But if you start hearing somebody you know is working on that campaign, you know, I know and friends with several people who work on that campaign. If I overhear something that they're planning on doing, I overheard it. It wasn't passed to me, but that's the extent of communication that can happen. So that makes it difficult, but it makes it difficult.
Yeah.
But the rules are there. That's what it is. And we're following both the rules for KREF and the FECC because we are doing stuff with a federal race.
Do we have a threshold in mind for how close the count is? And are we looking at, you know, do we know any details about other counties, or is it Jefferson County was the problem? And if you know, how close does it need to be before we say this was the problem? And then, because I'm just thinking the campaign's going to fight it, you know, if there's an issue, and the ACLU is probably in there too. And that, you know, I'm just trying to find out, okay, at some point we go to the same person to complain,
Right.
not together, but that, you know, then there's 5-6 groups saying, you know, it could be the Louisville Urban League, it could be the ACLU, it'll be his campaign, it'll be us. How many more PACs are there that are, you know, I don't know. The problem is then we also are fighting against, you know, Schumer. But
Right. So I think what it's probably going to come down to is the number of people who are willing to sign onto a class action suit, compared to the number of votes between the two of them. And I think what they're looking at is somewhere around 1 to 2%, which doesn't sound like much until you break it down into numbers. And I'm not saying that they're looking for like 1,000 people being willing to step into a class action lawsuit. What they're saying is if they can identify that number exceeds the gap between the two of them, then that's when they're looking at it. And you know, Booker's campaign is already raising money in case. They're looking for $500,000 to be able to challenge this if it's come down to you shut the doors on a whole bunch of people.
And we have evidence.
Right. So that's the best answer I can give, but what the campaign is specifically planning with that, I don't know personally. I'd say if anybody knows Colin Lauderdale and happens to ask, hey, what do you think the threshold's going to be there? That would be the only way I'd know how to find that out. But and I know Colin, but I can't ask him. Other than that, I mean, I don't know. But again, if Colin tells someone that you know and that person tells you, then that's a little different, because it's just like casual conversation. You didn't mean to hear it.
You're not, as a result of this, you're going to do this. Like it's
right. It was, and it's not, hey, Colin told this person because they wanted us to know.
Right.
So, anyway, there was something else and I can't remember, but I do have to hop off. But any questions, especially regarding, we do not have a contribution limit.
Right.
Where a candidate does, they have a, let's see, it's $2,400 for a federal election. We don't. Somebody could hand us a check for $1 million. And it's like, there you go. Just tell us what you do for a living. And
where can we find those people?
Right, exactly.
We already scoured the Charles Booker donor list, and there really weren't a whole lot of people, if any, that had maxed out their contribution already. But I bet you there are some on the Amy McGrath list. And, you know, if we got a call list ready and we started making some calls and a little script ready, we could start bringing in some money from some people that had some guilt they needed to absolve themselves for.
Well,
they made it a lot harder than they had to.
What about Matt Jones? Was he working with the campaign at all?
I think he's doing appearances with Charles.
Yeah,
so unfortunately, yeah.
Finally, he did get in the room with 10 of the big money donors in DC.
Yeah.
He finally, you know, a friend of a friend of a friend finagled him into the room against Schumer's, you know.
If word could get out that we were the overflow, you know, when you tapped out your donations, here's this overflow group. That's how we need to position ourselves with those types of individuals. So we just need a strategy. We need to start. Before I leave this screen, Bethany, have you seen this budget that I put together so far? This is a link that I shared with you and Anna this morning.
I haven't looked over it. I saw that you sent me the link in the Dropbox, right?
Yeah, in the messenger.
Yeah, but you shared a link to the Dropbox.
The Dropbox is the videos for the.
Oh, okay, and then I saw the thing.
So you had mentioned we needed a budget, and I didn't know if you had seen this already yet because.
No, I hadn't yet. Okay.
We need to do something different, but it sounds like it's on the right track. Okay. We have 2 minutes and 47 seconds left. So Bethany, I know you got to go. Thank you for your time.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much.
We're wrapping up because we're going to get shut off, and I'm not going to start another meeting. So I'm going to switch back real fast this last little bit. This to make sure we covered everything. Going forward, we're going to need teams. We need a strategy team. We need a fundraising team. I talked about calls to the McGrath donors. We need people who can write grants. We need copywriters who are really good at just helping us boost the content on our email blasts and on our website and on our Facebook, and just kind of have some ready to go copy paste messaging that we can get out there. So, you know, let's take a couple of days and just send them sharing links, because that's easy to do, and kind of get our breath again and see what's going to happen between now and June 30th, and then really start shaping our structure in a way that is going to build and grow and be successful. We've got social media, state outreach. We talked about all these already. So it's just a matter of bringing your friends along, especially teachers and students. We need to mentor, grow capacity, and also document the hell out of everything. Because if nothing else, we're making history, and we want to be able to tell the story when all this is over. Because as you've seen from media, the story gets twisted. The story gets about voter suppression when that wasn't really the story, or that kind of thing. So, or it is, but not the way it was told. We've always, voter suppression is not new. It wasn't because they gave us mail-in ballots that we had voter suppression. There were other factors. So 1 minute left. Does anyone have anything they want to end on?
The only thing is, we should reconnoiter to decide going forward, making demands for November, because Adams has already said we can't afford to do what we did this time again.
Good.
And too bad. It's got to be our attitude.
Anyone else? All
I
right.
completely agree. They need to do better next time. They can't do it just like they did it. They need to do better.
Well, they're talking about doing worse. Of course, that's not how they phrase it, but
Yeah, well,
we
Jason was
can't
saying-
afford to do this again, is how it was what he has said.
Jason was saying last night that they don't want people to have a month to do absentee ballots. He thinks it should only be 10 to 15 days. What else did he say, Sherry?
Well, my problem with, I mean, I understand where